And I'm more than thrilled to be here today and be with Reverend Darlene's community. I love the energy, I love the music, I love the heart. That Imagine song really opened my heart. And today, um, I named the talk A Practice of Peace, and it's something that I have been speaking about, but we're gonna get to that. And hopefully, it's really a new way of utilizing prayer so that we may be the presence that co-creates peace in the world. I saw Darlene last time at convention, and it's interesting because I was flying back to Raleigh, and there were like 6 or 7 ministers from North Carolina, all in the same plane. And it turned out to be that we sat in the same area, and I stood up and I said, this is the holy section here. But while flying back, I was reflecting on a lot of thought-provoking talks and conferences that we were exposed there, especially Reverend Chad, the CEO and president of Unity Worldwide Ministries. And he was making his point about the downside of social media in the youth, the possible risk of artificial intelligence. And he even mentioned how loneliness is becoming a problem in this country, and as to the US surgeon saying that loneliness is a public health issue, which is something that I don't know if you're aware, but in England, and both England and Japan, they created a position called the Minister of Loneliness to try to cope with that. Apparently, loneliness can have the same detrimental effect of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And as I was reflecting on all of this, I was brought to the idea of being alone and seeing how loneliness, you could be alone and feel lonely, but loneliness or being alone could be also a gift of solitude. And I know when we feel lonely, we might feel abandoned or we find ourselves unloved, and we might go into our own pity party. I learned this here in North Carolina. I didn't know about the term pity party. But then when we are in a space of solitude, we get to explore ourselves and be in reflection and be in contemplation. And I really feel that through the pandemic, we had the opportunity of having both, of feeling lonely, and detached, but also having had the opportunity to go within and explore and question. I don't know if you're aware, but through the pandemic times, there was a big shift in the labor market, to the point where a professor in Texas A&M University labeled it like the Great Resignation. And I have a quote from this professor. He says, during the pandemic, because there has been a lot of death and illness and lockdowns, we really have had the time and the motivation to sit back and say, do I like the trajectory of my life? Am I pursuing a life that brings me well-being? And this is some statistics. In November of 2021, a record of 4.3 million workers in America quit their jobs to really face some change and make some decisions, which I don't know you, but I think it's a great thing. It's beautiful when we get to go within and say, am I in alignment with my true heart's desires and my true values in life? I truly believe that before the pandemic, the planet could not hold any more levels of unconsciousness that we were holding as a world. And that so many of us were in serious disbalance between the doing and the having, doing and having, and being whenever, right? We were collectively forced to go and spend more time with ourselves, again, to explore, to question, and heal, and make decisions. But facing ourselves, you would agree with me, it's not an easy thing many times. Still, it's crucial, it's vital that we have a constant inner conversation with our souls. And not having that close relationship can really affect us individually and collectively. There's a French philosopher, I love this quote, Blaise Pascal, who said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." And we were forced. We were forced to stay home. And our routines change. And as our routines and our roles change, many of us went into a crisis of identity because we so identify ourselves with what we do. And you probably agree with me that as spiritual beings that we are, we come to this earth with some sort of divine plan. And when we are oblivious to that plan, we will be taken to the experiences that will serve as a magnifying glass so that we may see and redirect our lives. And I think that was the biggest gift that we were all exposed to. So I guess that when we look back at these times, I'm sure that we all have stories and so many lost dear ones or had big changes that maybe they weren't ready for. But I think as a collective, we're going to be grateful that we had that period for us. I would like to share something quite personal, a friend of mine, as a way to enhance what my message today is. During almost through the last portion of the pandemic, I have this friend who lives in Miami. This is before I moved there. And she had been married 35 years to a man, 20 years her senior. They were a really happy couple. They didn't have children, but they really engaged in life, and they have a real estate business together. And he was the type of guy, the party person, and everybody loved him, very social, always positive. And during the pandemic, he starts getting depressed. He has to go in some sort of brain procedure that was not supposed to be anything complex. And after that happens, he starts going downhill to the point where he gets to be hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital. And my friend, who is a lovely friend, but not necessarily deep into her spiritual path, told me, I don't think I'm going to get my husband back. And that worries me and saddens me. And then she looks up to me and says, "Can you show me another way? Because what I have done to this point isn't working." I was reminded of a minister, one of my mentors in the island, who her phrase was, and I think it's relevant, that man's adversity is God's opportunity. So now there's this opportunity for spirit to come into their lives. And I really, at some point I told her, this is not an emotion, this is a spiritual crisis. And it has to be addressed at the spiritual level. And she tells me, "I will do whatever you tell me. I will follow your instructions. If you tell me head down, I will do it." I go, wow, okay. And I decided on, this is Thanksgiving of that year, I decided on flying there and support her He was in the hospital still. And I'm in that airplane, and prior to going to the airplane, I'm looking for something, and I found this little like mini rosary that Leilani, the prayer chaplains, use for 7 steps. And I grabbed it, went into the plane, went to the airport, the plane, and I'm sitting there holding that and going into prayer and saying, show me what I'm, she's looking for specific instructions. And unity has so much to offer, but how do I make it friendly, easy? And in that trip, I get this download, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I go, oh, 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 and bingo. I said, okay, I might give her something that can bring prayer, because I realize that when you're in fear, your concentration is in all the bad things that can happen. So how do you shift into this different place? It has to be through prayer. But if you don't have a prayer practice, how do you go about it? So this is where the prayer technology was born, in an airplane from North Carolina to Miami, 7 steps. I realized that many times we as ministers go, oh, take that to prayer. And I know we have so many tools in unity, but sometimes we need more specifics that can allow us to cope the situation and bring the best the situation has to offer. So then I realized, okay, I grew up as a Catholic, so I'm thinking, yeah, there's some value to the beads, to actually touching something. And then, or the Buddhists who use the mala, maybe I can have her do this flow. And this is what I would love to talk to you about, so you may see it as a way to not only address whatever circumstances you might be going through that you feel you just can't cope, but also it would be a way of bringing yourself back to peace. So it has, and I'm going to show you, I have 2 slides. Before I go into specific details, I want you to become aware of how many of us, when we are in desperation or need, we go immediately, if we are in unity, we go into affirming, we jump into it. And one of the things I'm going to show to you is that in these 7 steps, we spent 3 steps in just balancing ourselves. It's almost like I was saying a couple of weeks ago, it's almost like, you're about to cook a banquet. You don't jump into, you prepare the kitchen first and create the best conditions so that when you start doing the actual creative part, which is the other part, you are centered and you're coming from your highest self. So, first step, and we know it. I know being here and with Reverend Darlene, many of this stuff will be like you already know about it, but I just want you to open up and see what is it that I'm hearing today that can enhance my own practice. So the first step is really getting quiet, closing your eyes, breathing mindfully. I love this Scandinavian mystic that every so often I follow, that he says that breath is the portal to God. So imagine you just bringing yourself to breathing mindfully, and then that's really the basic step. Breathing, closing your eyes, and then bringing your attention to the center of your heart. And imagining that the heart is like a star of light that shines like 1,000 times more than the sunlight. And you're ready through the breath, moving away from the chatter of the mind, going into the heart space, and moving away from that into that space beyond the mind, just to sit there and breathe. And this is a heart math technique in which you imagine that you're breathing through your heart, not through your lungs. And then the third step is when you want to bring heart qualities into your space by appreciating, thinking of people, or even heart math suggests that we think of pets or an important moment in our lives where we just bring those heart qualities and we start putting all the energy beyond the mind and just creating the space. I have a video that I would like to show you from Heart Math that really shows you how to do this.
Howard Martin will lead you through the quick coherence technique.
I'd like you to bring your attention and awareness to your heart, to the center of your chest. Now imagine your breath is flowing in and out through your heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. Just find an easy rhythm that's comfortable. Putting your attention around the heart area helps you center and get coherent. As you continue heart-focused breathing, make a sincere attempt to experience a regenerative feeling, such as appreciation or care for someone or something in your life. Perhaps you can re-experience a time when you felt love or appreciation for a person, a pet, a time in nature, an accomplishment, or just breathe the attitude of love or gratitude. As you're doing this, you're increasing your coherence level. Your nervous system is synchronizing. Hormones are being released into your system that regenerates you. Signals from your heart to your brain are moving through your emotional and higher brain centers. This opens the door for you to experience more uplifting emotions and access to intuitive insight.
So hopefully we are all vibrating at the heart now. And now is the time, this is the next few steps in which now we're going to do our creative work. And this is where unity is big in explaining to us the power of affirmations. But if you think about it, many times when we are in prayer need, there's something that is really bothering us, and we're in great fear about it. Like my friend thinking my husband will never get out of that hospital. And thinking maybe he shouldn't have done his procedure and so on. So the fourth step involves you saying, I accept whatever is and make it okay. Just go, it is what it is, and I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to blame anybody. And I have a good story, a personal story that happened shortly after. My dad, who at the time was close to 92 years old, during that year Christmas celebration, this is probably 21, 22, my daughter, we were in the island visiting, and one of my daughters started feeling bad, and I took her to the ER. And shortly after, we had the New Year's Eve celebration, and we all hugged and we shared, and it turned out to be that we all got COVID. And so did my dad. 92 years old, complicated case, and he got pneumonia, and he was taken to the hospital and was isolated there. And my dad, who passed away recently, he was the type of, in Spanish we say ñoñi, you know, he's like, oh, like a baby. He likes to be taken care of. He had caretakers, my mom, he had like a whole entourage of caretakers. To find himself in that room not having access to anybody. And of course, what do you think I was going through myself? I should have been more cautious. I had taken my daughter to the ER. We should have never, be close to him. And when I started with this step of saying, okay, I'm going to accept it. And the way to make peace with that is to say, even if I can't see it, there's good in this situation. The Unity first principle says God is good and omnipresent. So it means that in the midst of this situation, my dad having COVID with complications with pneumonia, there's a good here. And you know what? Yes, it did. Surely, what we learned from the experience after he survived that, and he told me, he says, Ana, I had to, for the first time, really face death and my fear of death. And all the family had to face that possibility that it was my dad's time to transition was coming up. So that, let's say, rehearsal or trial gave us a time for all of us to prepare. You see? The ego would say, no, you messed up, because that's out of fear. But when you come back to principle and you say, there's always good in the midst, I might not be able to see it, but I'm holding it. And that, when you do that, then the fear is liberated, and now you have the energy to go into the fifth step, which is to decree and affirm. And you know how? We make the decree that there is good in the situation, that everything is unfolding in divine order, and we affirm that, and we affirm that, and we affirm that, and we are just creating the perfect conditions in consciousness for the miracle to take place. Once we do that, then we have to let it go. We have to surrender and make it okay whether what we're praying for happens or not. We just go and say, I surrender to the time and the way, and if it will actually come. Because the universe hates the energy of desperation. And we just have to say, okay, this is what I think it is. I'm affirming, I'm standing by it, but I'm going to let it go. And then the last step would be to just culminate in gratitude. If you notice, every unity prayer ends with gratitude. And not because we want to be polite people and God, the human God going, oh, very well, thank you. No, we are creating this sense of expectation that the good that I am seeking is seeking me, that this good coming forth in this situation. So we start with the breath and we culminate with a sense of expectancy and gratitude. So what happened? He did come out of the hospital. And they started praying together every night. And I remember looking at their night table and seeing everything there. And they bonded. And they grew together. And they shifted from the doing and the having to going and saying, there is so much more to life. So indeed, there was a greater good wanted to come forth, but they needed directions. And here in Unity, we have tools, awesome tools. And what we're going to be doing this afternoon in our workshop is to go deeper and say and understand this flow, because the ultimate aim is to stay in peace. That's what we all want. And sometimes we just need a way, an actual way, a practice that can help us there. You guys are beautiful. You're paying attention. I like it. So let's take this to prayer and meditation now, if I may. You might get yourself comfortable. And yes, breathe in and breathe out with me. And whatever you might have come with this morning to church or online, just know that if you take this to prayer, it can be turned around, not only the situation, but it can turn you around spiritually and make you stronger. So at this very moment, we breathe in love, we breathe out love. We breathe in peace, we breathe out peace. And then we bring our attention to the center of our hearts and see this star of light that is really the doorway to spirit, to good, to our I am presence, to the solution, to the way. And we anchor ourselves there by connecting with the idea of stimulating heart qualities of love and appreciation and compassion. And as we do that, we create coherence with our minds. So imagine, and I imagine everybody right now being in perfect coherence, the heart leading the way and bringing calmness and even a sense of bliss and joy. And from this place now, whatever might be disturbing us, or that we are in so much fear and resistance, we're going to embrace it and speak to that situation and say, even if I cannot see it now, there's good in here. For God is here and God is good. And hopefully, after working this step, you feel lighter to then really know and affirm the truth that everything in that situation, in your life, in your path, is organizing itself for perfect results. And the perfect results are according to God's standards, not ourselves. We might have an idea, but God always has the best ideas. And God is always willing to exceed our expectations. So we affirm that. And then let it all go. and surrender. If you need an image, bring that situation and imagine that it's in a box and that you're turning it over to Spirit. And when we put things in the hands of God, the hands of God are handling that situation. To then bring us to the space of gratitude and relief. And like Jesus, who many times gave thanks before the miracle, we close the prayer in that awareness. That the good, my highest good, the highest good of those I'm praying for, it's on its way. Breathe in, breathe out, and maybe bring either hand to your heart center and just stay there in peace. And know that that is your natural state. That is how you're meant to live. And that is how you're meant to express. We send that out to the whole city and area of the mountain, Blue Ridge Mountains, extending through all of North Carolina and the country and the world and the universe. We did our part in imagining a new world. For that and more, we say, thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.